There are several issues that have been raised regarding the man, Robert Ramirez. The first is that he was intoxicated as he was driving around the streets of Chicago on the night of December 7th. This is simply not supported by the facts. If you look at the time frame of the evening, if you look at the time that Mr. Ramirez left to go hang out with his friends, the time that he claims admits to have been drinking, the time that he was at the bar, and then the time, sometime around 4:30 in the morning, when the call was actually made to the police department regarding the incident, too much time has elapsed for the alcohol to still have any significant effect upon Mr. Ramirez. The opposing counsel would like to have you believe that Mr. Ramirez was intoxicated, that he was an angry, slobbering drunk at the time of the incident. This is simply not true. It had been several hours since his last drink, and you heard testimony that he really had not had that much to drink. He had a few drinks and then a couple of scotch and water at the bar, maybe totaling 5 or 6 drinks altogether over the course of an evening. But from 10 o'clock in the evening, or 9 or 10 o'clock in the evening, to 4:30 in the morning, the effects of the alcohol are going to have worn off. There should not be any lingering effect, and certainly not enough to make Ramirez the angry, slobbering drunk that opposing counsel would have you believe. The second issue is the placement of the cars. The opposing counsel would have you believe that the officers were blocked in, that Ramirez blocked the officers in, so they had no course of escape. They could not have driven off. They had to get out of the car and confront Mr. Ramirez. Again, simply not true. You consider the police report that has been admitted into evidence. The officers could have driven away at any time. The responding officer, who came and wrote the police report, said that the cars were parked parallel. The officers could have easily driven away, and should have driven away. They should not have confronted Mr. Ramirez in the fashion that they did. Mr. Ramirez had broken no law. He had done nothing wrong. 2 police officers had no cause to stop and engage in a fist fight with him. The other issues that have been raised regarding the knife and the clothes, again, purely unsubstantiated claims. The knife, Mr. Ramirez never had such a knife. He never owned it. Had never seen the knife. There were no fingerprints on the knife. There was no blood on the knife. If a man is stabbed with a knife, there should be blood marks. If a hand holds a knife, there should be fingerprints. Nothing to support either of those very critical pieces of evidence. Nothing whatsoever. So the arguments that have been thrown against Mr. Ramirez, the arguments that he was an angry, slobbering drunk, that he owned a knife, and he blocked the officers in, they're simply not supported by evidence. They're simply not supported by testimony, other than that of the officers themselves. Even the officer that wrote the police report gives inconsistent testimony. So due to the nature of this case, due to the nature of the evidence that we've seen, the nature of the testimony, I think it's very clear that the charges, charges are the wrong word, but the arguments that have been leveled against Mr. Ramirez simply don't hold up. They simply don't hold up. There was no knife. Mr. Ramirez did not own a knife of that nature. He did not. There were no fingerprints on the knife. There were no blood on the knife. Nothing linking the knife to Mr. Ramirez. He did not block the officers in. He was not an angry, slobbering drunk. The evidence bears this out. And I would ask you to bear this in mind as you consider this case, the merits of this case, and as you consider what liability should be imposed. What we do know for sure, is that Mr. Ramirez was shot. We don't know how Levy was stabbed. We don't know. There are some things that are unclear. Even with all the testimony we've seen, there are things that are unclear. What is clear, what is unquestioned, Mr. Ramirez was shot. He was permanently, seriously disabled. That is unquestioned. It's unquestioned that he was seriously injured. What is in question is that every charge that has been, every accusation against Mr. Ramirez is in question. So I ask you to bear this in mind as you consider this case, as you consider who should be responsible, who should bear responsibility. Consider what is known versus what is unknown. What is known is that Mr. Ramirez was seriously injured, and that it was needless and a careless act of police brutality.